Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome, and thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. My name is Nick. I'm going to be your MC for today's webinar. The topic is Building Your Campus of the Future, and we have two of the foremost experts for infrastructure in the education space. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them in a minute, but just a couple pieces of housekeeping. If you have questions throughout the presentation, and we encourage you to get those questions submitted, use the chat feature inside the ReadyTalk interface, and we'll be able to take your questions, and we'll handle those at the end. We're going to ask you guys some questions. We're going to have a handful of polling questions established throughout the webinar, so when we ask you those polling questions, we appreciate you responding, and we'll share the results with everybody in attendance. Finally, this webinar is being recorded, so if you have other people you think might be interested, they'll be able to listen to this as well. Our two speakers for today, one is going to be Thomas Keenan. He's a Director of Product Marketing at Huawei and specializes in infrastructure in the education space. And the second speaker is going to be Ajay Gupta, who's also a Director of Marketing. So without further ado, Thomas, take it away.
Nick, thank you very much. And again, we do appreciate everyone's attendance for this webinar today. Again, building your education campus for the future. Let me start with the agenda for the next hour. And again, we will leave time for Q&A at the end. So let's definitely keep this as interactive as possible. But my four parts of my agenda today are to start, as many of you tell me that you may or may not be extremely familiar with Huawei, so we try to quickly go through a quick review of what we consider ourselves, how we consider ourselves to be a robust and global partner. The second piece of my agenda will be the challenges I see for the educational campus, both K through 12 and university. So if you either are in either of those spaces or you serve those spaces, I believe the comments will apply from K through 12 all the way up to higher ed and clearly into graduate programs because they have many of the same challenges. Well, then I'll turn it over to Ajay to discuss the Huawei Agile solution that I think directly addresses the cares and concerns of those two key stakeholders. And then finally, we'll go through a couple of case studies in the educational space and how Huawei is helping customers solve their problems, the networking and connectivity problems today, in some very interesting ways. But quickly as background then, on this slide, information and communications technologies are very much merging. And so I think you really need to understand that to understand Huawei. And you fundamentally need to understand the fact that what's going on in this industry is that we're seeing the convergence and merger of information technologies such as mainframe with communication technologies such as digital comms, mobile communications, and mobile broadband. And that trend is being driven by three key drivers. Number one, the adoption and use of cloud models, whether those be private, public, or hybrid. Number two, the explosion of mobility in almost too many verticals to mention. I'm sure a lot of you are extremely familiar with mobile workforces and how that's changed your life. The locality of employees has become much, much less at HQ and in the office and much more on the road, getting out there to help close customer business. And that applies across verticals. So when we're talking about education, retail certainly is extremely mobile, the public sector, and many others. And net at the end of the day, the mobile worker percentage of our force is getting ever higher. And finally, the third major trend that's driving this ICT convergence is the consumerization of IT, as I call it, where technologies previously seen in the consumer space have now migrated strongly to the enterprise. And so what you're seeing is your sales force, your workers, your employees bring more and more of those consumer devices into the enterprise, and you need to have a strategy, a BYOD strategy or something along those lines to address that trend, because whether you like it or not, it's going to happen, and you have to have a strategy to address it. And so we'll talk about that trend as well. So if you believe that this is ongoing, and I get a lot of nods in the webinars we do over the line and in person, that yeah, you absolutely see this occurring, it makes sense, I think, to ally yourself with a company that spans these technologies and is equally at ease in the worlds of enterprise, service provider, and consumer. So might I suggest Huawei is the type of company that can be at ease in those three worlds. And so that'd be a question that I would ask your current provider. What can you do for me in those spaces, and how are you preparing for ICT convergence? And if you don't like the answer you get, it might be time to look for another provider. Okay, so looking from a revenue perspective and our growth recently, The numbers are quite impressive from a revenue growth perspective. We're on track, if you look at our first half of 2015, to close off the year in roughly the $55, $56 billion revenue area. And I think that's impressive for a couple of reasons. If you've been seeing it all, the swoon in many parts of the networking space, you'll notice that our growth, our steady growth, our CAGR as it looks, and our percentage of business continues to increase in our theaters despite that downdraft. So while a lot of our competitors are seeing extremely small growth or even retrenching, cutting offices, cutting back in countries, Huawei continues to see acceleration of growth. And it shows you how broad our portfolio is, that we can grow in areas like WDM, like ELTE, like some of the other nascent technologies to replace areas that might be slowing down temporarily. And a lot of our competitors don't have the breadth they needed to be able to do that. So they end up being a bit, if you would, prisoners of their low theater, their low product strategy, and they don't have a lot of places to go when one of those slows down. So I think it's an extremely important set of facts to know about Huawei. Our business, as I showed in 2014, yes, still largely centered in China. We are, after all, headquartered in Shenzhen. But looking at us, most of our business is overseas, much in EMEA or Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Asia Pacific takes up about 15% due to our locality, and then the Americas, 11% and growing. So very much on track to do well north of $50 billion a year. That's something definitely to keep an eye on as we move forward. Last fact I'd like to mention to you, a couple of the facts here are extremely interesting to a lot of our customers. We do serve 45 of the world's top 50 telecom operators, and that's really our heritage. So the bulletproofing that we do in the carrier space, if you're an enterprise customer, that will give you an extreme sense of satisfaction because we know that service providers and carriers, to them the network is the business. That product must be bulletproof or my network is out of business, and so is my revenue stream. So it's an incredibly important fact to know that if my telecom operators are saying that product is good to go, I think the enterprise and the commercial spaces can rest assured that it will be good for them as well. We do have north of 160,000, actually approaching 170,000 employees. At least 46% of whom are engaged in R&D, and we have 70% of those who hold either a master's or a PhD degree, and the average age is a very young 31. That yields, in our space, a large number of patents. We are one of the largest patent holders in the world in the networking and communication space, and that continues to grow over time. So lots of innovation going on, and lots of enthusiasm and energy and a large number of people to address the concerns that you have from a growth perspective, from a product maintenance perspective, and also from a new innovation product perspective. Describing our business groups very quickly, I mentioned we operate in three main areas: the carrier business group, the enterprise business group, and the devices business group. We also have a separate, what I'll call a cross-pollination or emerging technologies group that has its sole focus of kind of stepping away from the business and deciding what are the new exciting projects that a lot of my current maintenance engineers may not get time to work on. We give a lot of people dedicated time just to go out and invent tomorrow, as I call it. And so I think it's incredibly important that to have this skunk works, if you would, of people who have don't need to ship something the day after tomorrow, aren't looking for the revenue right now, but have the time to put their feet up on the desk, look a little bit out in the future and decide, talk to consumers and decide what are the next set of attributes, the next set of products that people in the carrier, the enterprise, or the device group are going to need, and to go out and create those things, and then to pollinate them into current businesses. So it's all about focus and being able to do that as 100% part of your day job, as opposed to something that you never quite get to because you're always fixing that software update, trying to ship that product, et cetera. So we have the ability with our R&D force to be able to separate a lot of those folks and tell them to go create tomorrow and bring those products to market. Over on the device side, we are the number 3 smartphone device maker in the world, very much competing with Samsung and Apple. Enterprise Business Group, we have a full portfolio of switching, routing, optical, video conferencing and telepresence, as well as WLAN products. And obviously over in the carrier space, a full set of routing, switching, ELTE, as well as as well as WDM products. So LTE for the space, and then we actually also have an enterprise LTE product that we'll talk a little bit about later on. Okay, so just showing the big footprint of Huawei worldwide. I'm showing our regional headquarters, 140 plus branch offices, and 6 R&D locations in North America alone, plus 13 branch offices in North America. So a very broad footprint. We've been in the country since 2001. The original footprint was in Plano, Texas. And we launched the enterprise piece of the business coming up at about 4 years ago this fall at Interop. And we also have a permanent R&D facility down in Santa Clara, California, and a sales facility for enterprise here in Cupertino. Again, an extremely large footprint. It gives us the ability to be very close to our customers, fully support our partners worldwide, and also to support the enterprise business wherever we go. So with that kind of a footprint, that kind of ability to react to customers, you can rest assured that there is a Huawei facility near you to provide the support you need on your network rollouts. So quite frankly, this slide shows that the sun truly never sets on the Huawei empire, I'll call it, I guess. We have followed the sun R&D model, where projects which are being worked on perhaps in Santa Clara, we turn those over to a later hour, if you would, to Shenzhen, and those folks can continue churning on that project through what we call our night until the next day, and we'll have made substantial progress in keeping that product moving. And that's a distinct advantage to a company that might have a few sites only in North America or perhaps just in EMEA and the U.S. footprint. So this is a huge, huge competitive advantage that we strongly take advantage of on top of our R&D force of over 70,000 folks. Okay, so having given you a very brief snapshot of where we are as Huawei, Nick, I think it's time to go to our polling question number 1.
You are correct, sir, and thank you for that great overview. The first polling question we're going to ask is just get a feel for your place on the Wi-Fi adoption curve. If you are working in a scholastic or education environment, you know how important Wi-Fi is. So what we want to know is, are you just kicking tires and you're expecting to move to 802.11a, or are you further down on the curve with 802.11b, G, N, or AC? So go ahead and place your vote and hit submit, and you'll be able to see where everybody stands today. And we'll just give you guys a couple seconds more to vote. Also, just to let you know, we are starting to get some questions on the chat interface, and we'd love to have more. So please, if you are thinking of questions as we go through this, absolutely enter those in the chat area, and we will address those at the end of the presentation. We're going to give you about 5 more seconds to vote, and then we're going to go ahead and move forward. All right. Well, it looks like AC is the winner at this point with 2/3 of the audience. Tom?
Fantastic results there, and appreciate, again, everyone's voting. And let me go ahead then to the second part of our agenda. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. 11 AC is very much in the wheelhouse about for a lot of the enterprises and where they're going. The much larger bandwidth also has folks talking about 802.11x, which right now is a bit of a science project, but certainly coming down the pipe. So you definitely want to investigate that technology as well. And as always, Huawei will be on the forefront of leading that charge and getting that product out to our customer base, very much as we were on the forefront of 802.11 AC. Okay, so on the second part of my presentation today, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the challenges of the traditional teacher-centric education work. And I think this is something that a lot of us can associate with. So let me break it down to 3 easy pieces. Number 1, the 3 stakeholders I'm going to talk about are the student, number 2, the teacher, and finally the executive management that oversees either a K-12 or a university. And let's just admit that the historical model, if you would, from a teacher and a learning perspective, and the student in particular, has not been the best one. We can all relate, I think, to the fact that historically, the student has been very much textbook bound with large amounts to memorize out of fixed books. Number 2, the learning style has been one way and passive, And also the resources, a lot of times, a lot of students find are really not enough to support the learning experience. Class is extremely short. Sometimes if you don't get the material in class, it's hard to get extra help after hours. And so the learning experience for a lot of students, if you're not one of the standout ones, can be extremely frustrating. Number two, on the teacher side, let's have some pity for them as well. There's too much blackboard time in a lot of cases. A lot of places don't have a lot of audiovisual resources. You have to repeat the heavy teaching workload during the day. And then finally, for a lot of areas, a lot of countries even, you actually have to physically travel between campuses to support multiple venues. At the end of the day, also, stakeholder number three, our executives are also faced with a series of challenges in that they're trying to stretch budgets in leaner and leaner times, yet make an impact on the student world, hire the best teachers, maintain them, and try to plan for upgrades that can support what's going on in the student's world. So at the end of the day, though, if we want to start solving for those challenges of those three areas, the student, the teacher, and the administrator, we need to kind of boil it down and simplify. And I think we can probably agree that if we start solving some of those student problems, the teacher and the administrator problems start to go away. And I think that's true because if we have to pick one key stakeholder out of those three, we're there for the student. All of us are there for the student, the teachers, the administrators, and the folks who sell the administrators and the teachers items to make that experience easier. If we're not working ultimately to make the student more successful, we're working on the wrong problem. Teachers don't talk to empty classrooms. Administrators don't administer empty campuses. And so if we start realizing and talking about how can we make the student experience better, we realize that what we want to do is move the experience out of the classroom and make it more of a 24/7 learning experience for the student. Whether that's in the classroom, in the virtual community, the library, outdoors, at home, or even in the dorm, we want to open that experience and make it more exciting and more challenging for the student and move away from the historical textbook-only approach. And might I suggest to do that, networking and connectivity and understanding those worlds and how they can enable that transition are extremely important to have. That is the basis of the conversation for improving this world. No network, no connectivity, we'll go right back to the classroom and the unicast method of teaching folks. And again, that is not what we're about here today. We're about enriching that student experience from the get-go and making that a much more rewarding experience. At the end of the day, the future state of what we want to have the student have is the future of education. That's student-centric learning as opposed to classroom-centric learning. Ubiquitous learning that occurs anytime, anywhere, with anyone, provided by any access to the course material you want at the time you want it. And so that ends up providing is equal learning, all-around development of the student, much better teaching environment, much better administrative environment, and also the interest improved. And so again, if you have a vendor who understands that transition needs to occur, I think you're miles ahead. And at the end of the day, it's the same thing that occurs in the college environment. They're facing the same types of challenges as K through 12 are. They are complex network access methods and customized network applications that are running more and more colleges that we need to understand. There are increasingly more complex network applications and a wide variety of professional IT services and a lack of innovative transmission networks that are trying to support that brand new learning experience. So picking out a vendor who can help you solve those issues is extremely important to do and to do well. So at the end of the day, my final summary slide here, I've talked about ICT and how the transformation is occurring from the information and communication technologies point of view. ICT can come to the rescue here with 6 particular educational models it helps support, and therefore a vendor like Huawei, I believe, gets a place at the table to help you solve those problems as we are an ICT vendor. Number 1, collaboration and virtualization can clearly help in getting information out much more quickly and a more cooperative manner to the student base that needs it. Open online education supports those massively open online courses that are so popular in many colleges and even increasingly in some K through 12 environments. Self-defined learning, which is popular in a lot of academies and private schools where the student defines their path early on, that can be supported through ICT. Distance education clearly can with things like video conferencing, telepresence, networking, and then also access to knowledge and course material via multiple channels, whether that be on devices, PCs and laptops. That's very much in the wheelhouse of ICT. And then also our researchers and administrators get much quicker access to research knowledge and what they need to be productive. This type of approach has become so important to so many places worldwide that many countries now have lifted ICT and education to a national strategy. It's not just in Korea, it's not just in Britain or throughout EMEA. It's in the United States, it's in Latin America. It's a worldwide phenomenon going on. It's called by different names. It has slightly different approaches, but at the end of the day, the goal of all those plans is to move ICT into the forefront of education and make it be the change agent that allows that student experience to change and to become much better. So with that, Nick, that background, those challenges in education, the next part of the discussion we'll talk about, okay, we've talked about the challenges, but what are the solutions? And that's where AJ is going to jump in. But before he does, it's time quickly for polling question number 2.
Excellent. Well, I think what we want to do, Thomas has covered a wide variety of topics as he's been talking about some of the issues associated with the education environments. Right now, we want to ask you, what's the top issue that keeps you up at night regarding your campus network? Is it security? Is it performance issues? Is it manageability, scaling and bandwidth, or is it something else? So please go ahead and vote, and we'll check out all the results. We'll give you just a minute or two to vote, and while you do, want to let you know that we are still getting some questions, and we'd love to have some more, so please keep the questions coming, and that would be much appreciated. We're going to give you just another about 15 seconds to vote, and then we're going to continue on. So go ahead and give it your vote. Looks like a pretty even spread across all the topics, with manageability and bandwidth kind of taking the lead there. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to AJ Gupta, Director of Marketing, and he's going to dive into some of the details of education. AJ, take it away.
Thank you so much, Nick. So I'm going to cover some of the Agile solutions, some of the applications from an education point of view from Huawei. So without further ado, let's get started here. So as Tom mentioned, the IT, the ICT, the information technology has revolutionized the education system. Whether you're talking online learning, distance learning, interactive multimedia, interactive whiteboards, blackboards, the whole technology has reshaped the way teachers teach and students learn, actually, in the classroom or off the classroom. So from Huawei perspective, here you can see the solution that we provide. It's not just about servers and networks. Huawei actually does provide some of these applications, as you can see in the slide here, from digital libraries, from student management, from teacher management, from decision support, complemented by some of our consulting services, training services, and fundamentally everything is actually based on the security, providing you that safe campus that students and teachers expect from the K-12 and the higher ed, actually. So let's talk quickly about the applications here. Huawei actually provides 4 applications. When I say applications, I'm talking of the education application from Huawei in the education space. The first one is actually, as the slide indicates, innovative teaching, which basically gives you remote interactive classes, live classes, online, offline, based on the demand learning, all complemented by the HD and the unified communication products from Huawei. The second one, what it says on the bottom left, resource distribution. This is the education cloud that Huawei provides using the industry-leading cloud technologies to promote the resource sharing. The third one, the digital campus on the right-hand side, which basically gives the teacher management application, giving tools for teacher training, assessment, administration, academic management, keeping your scores, keeping your numbers. And then there is one more application that's not mentioned in this, is what we call is eBag, which offers basically an environment based on the Huawei terminals and devices. And obviously, as you can imagine, these applications that we provide is done with the help of our partners. It's a win-win situation for Huawei as well as for our partners. Huawei has a partner from a joint solution development perspective, from a technology perspective, from an integrated solution perspective, offering the joint services offering. So from an ICT perspective, Huawei has partnered with IBM, Microsoft, Intel, Oracle, as you can very well imagine, to give you that infrastructure partnership. From an application point of view, what I just talked about, the eBag, the interactive classrooms, the education cloud, all of those offerings are actually provided using some of the partners like Reach, things like T1, things like ZKBC. These are our global partners that provide the joint application solutions that I just mentioned in the earlier slide here. So let's see here. I talked about the digital campus here. So in terms of digital campus, when I say digital campus, I want to make sure everybody kind of understands what I'm saying here. So digital campus basically integrates a variety of systems or applications, including wired, wireless, TV, teaching management into one IP network. And using this digital campus, if you look at it, Huawei gives in the form of what we call Agile Campus. 2 years ago, we launched our Agile Campus as a cornerstone for the next generation college campus networks. And the 5 hallmarks, the 5 salient features that we do for the Agile Campus or digital campus are as follows. The experience, the focus has moved from device technology into user. In fact, from user technology to device, and it's going to be becoming an experience-centric going forward. The second one, what we call a real-time quality detection. When I say real-time quality detection, in case there is an application that is suffering from quality of service point of view, the Agile, the Smart, the Digital Campus actually can detect in real time and take the necessary measures that needs to be done in order to really get the quality that's needed by the network. From a security point of view, as I said earlier, it's not about a single point difference actually. The security is actually from a network, from the whole network-wide collaboration point of view. The Agile Campus uses what we call big data analytics to provide that security that you need in the safe campus in K-12 and higher ed. The network, the Agile Campus, obviously is changing from being hardware-defined to software-defined. So any application, any services that you want to do in the future, you don't have to forklift your network today. You can just reprogram the network, and voila, there you go with your next services that you need. Using the Agile controller, using the so-called campus controller in the campus, we are moving with the help of Agile network from being a static configuration to a dynamic configuration. Agile controller can configure and automate and orchestrate your policies with the click of a single button, as opposed to the traditional networks where you need to go and program and put policies into each and every device. So here, an average, a typical campus might look like in a school or university. At the core, we have dual 12,700, our Agile Switch, which is basically clustered using what we call CSS2. At the aggregation layer, you have 7,700, and then at the access layer, you have 5,700 along with the access points. You can actually have your digital library, some of the applications, remote education, virtual classrooms, all based on this network, along with your dormitories and your branches, all done through the dual Agile Switch 12700. So let's quickly dive a little bit further down into the Agile Switch here. The switch, which is at the heart of the Agile Digital Smart Campus, was launched 2 years ago, and there are several things that it brings to the table from a customer, from a user point of view. The number one, obviously, the speeds and feeds they are the industry leading. We are talking almost in this particular switch, we are talking almost, for example, 1 million MAC table entries, 3 million FIP table entries, etc. So for the applications that are a bandwidth hog, this switch plays right to them. We have something what we call native access controller, which means the access controller capabilities are actually inbuilt into the switch itself. You don't need a separate access controller appliances. You can establish a CAF web tunnel right from the switch all the way to the access points actually. I talked about some of the large table sizes here. Extremely important for your video applications, for your multimedia applications, for your burst that happens, the traffic burst that might happen for those applications. CSS2 uses what we call the switch fabric cards as opposed to the service line cards, which means both your control and data packets are transmitted using the switch fabric. So in a cluster, let's say there are 4 boxes. So even if the 3 of the boxes go down, the cluster will still function as long as one MPU, one main processing unit is still up. That's the advantage of CSS2 compared to the previous CSS1, where you've got to have a minimum of 2 functioning MPUs to keep the cluster going. So several leading salient features that we have brought in this Agile Switch as part of the Agile Campus here. So 3 main things that I would like to focus on. Obviously, now it becomes an on-demand network. You can only configure, you can only put the capital investment only in the network that you need. And as your demands grow, you can add on without hurting the rest of the network. Simplified management, simplified operations. A single switch can actually manage your whole network. We have features what we call super virtual fabric, where, for example, the access switches, the access points, they can be configured as ports on the switch. The aggregation switches can be configured as the blades, as the module within the switch. So the maintenance, the management becomes a lot easier, because when you're managing a network, in a sense, you're managing a single switch. Innovation, SDN ready, the evolution to the future network services, given that the network is completely programmable all the way from hardware to applications using SDK and open APIs, you don't need to worry about what happens in the future if there is a new application, new protocol that comes your way. All you need to do is different software download, and that's it in order to take care of that new application or services. For example, here let's talk about the Ubiquity Services as part of our Agile Campus here. This is what we also call as free mobility, and this is what we call as free mobility as well. No matter where you are, whether you're coming from Beijing or China or Silicon Valley or in EMEA, it's like carrying a personal cloud with you. You have the same policy, same experience, no matter what terminal, what device, what location, what time. your policies, your storage, your quality of service, your bandwidth, all stays with you whether you're coming from wired or wireless. Policies here. When you look at the policies, it's as simple as a native English actually. You can define who is coming, student and teacher, what device they're coming from, what device, whether they're coming from laptop, whether using BYOD, the company provided or the school or college provided, or they're personally owned, where they're coming from, classrooms or office, what time are they coming, what is their access method, what's their authentication method, all can be configured in a simple policy. And as part of the Agile Campus, we do provide the templates that you can use in order to configure. Look at the policies here. This is a group policy that I'm showing here. You can define several groups. For example, Mark is part of that group which accesses through intranet. You can define what department here, whether it's coming through wired intranet. Its access method is coming from dormitory from a location point of view, quality of services, what time of the day he's allowed to come in. All those things are as simple as a click, making it a really plug and play for the Agile Smart Campus here. Programmability, I did talk a little bit earlier. The thing I would like to mention here is something what we call POF, Protocol Oblivious Forwarding Protocol. It's based on OpenFlow. In fact, it has OpenFlow plus some of the very innovative extensions that Huawei has defined. The heart of all those things is also from a hardware point of view what we call ENP, the Ethernet Network Processor. That's again a Huawei innovation, and that helps make this network fully programmable, giving you the advantage of the investment protection here. Real-time quality detection, as I kind of alluded earlier in the slide. Now, if the network quality is going down, you can detect and take measures to correct that quality. From a fault and troubleshooting point of view, you can detect the fault not just between the links, but on the module, even on the chip, actually, in less than 2 seconds, really, in real time. If you look at the IP and TCP, they are based on the best effort, actually. But using the IPCA, again, a Huawei innovation and extension of the Huawei's SDN definition, now you can detect and troubleshoot in real time. It's like before even the network goes down, network is going to send a message to the TAC and to the Network Operations Center, NOC, look, there's something wrong here and we need to take care of it. Security. Security, as I said, is not about one device or two devices. Now we can do the correlation between multiple devices in your network using what we call big data analytics, actually. We collect security events from the entire network. We really can detect these two alerts are coming from the same event, actually. We also have what we call the Security Resource Center, which means you don't have to deploy your firewalls, your IPSs, your DDoS at every point in the network. You can actually divert the traffic which needs to go through the security boxes to the Security Resource Center, get that traffic cleaned and send the traffic back to the egress points here. So the point I'm making here is it's a network-wide collaboration when it comes to security. That correlation that was missing in the traditional network is actually brought out in our Agile Smart Campus here. So the last thing I'd like to mention as part of our Agile network is wired and wireless, the unified network. Wireless used to be an overlay network in the traditional networks here, but that had a problem, two different policies, two different quality of services, etc., etc. With the Agile Smart Campus, Huawei has unified your wired and wireless network, giving you a single policy. From a user point of view, it's completely transparent, actually. whether you're coming from wired and wireless, you have the same policies no matter who you are. Another thing which I would like to add on when it comes to wired and wireless here is basically we were one of the first ones to actually launch 802.11 AC. I know a lot of you are in the process of doing the .11 AC. So wave 2 of .11 AC products from Huawei would be launched and would be shipping by end of this year or early Q1 of next year. With that, I think it's the time for question number 3. Nick?
Thanks so much, AJ. And this is our final polling question, just getting a bit of a sense of timing in terms of when you might be doing your next infrastructure refresh or expansion. Are you doing something within the next 3 months, the next 6 months, within the next year, the next 2 years, or more than 2 years out? So go ahead and submit, and we'll take a look at what the timing is on that stuff. We'll give you just about another 10 seconds to vote here, and I know Thomas is chomping at the bit to get into some of the details around ELTE and talk about a couple case studies. So with that, Thomas, we'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, Nick, thank you so much. I appreciate those polling results again. Let me go ahead and then conclude the webinar at this point, and we'll get some Q&A with a couple of products from the wireless perspective. The first I'll talk about is a very interesting product that ends up allowing you to address the issue of extending the wireless DMARC beyond the traditional coverage model of the school campus, if you would, university campus, K-12 campus, to provide access to folks who may not have internet access at home through a product we call ELTE. Let's quickly start, though, by addressing the fact that ELTE, or Enterprise Long-Term Evolution, is a 4G technology, next-gen technology, that it can apply to several verticals. If you can imagine that the ability to quickly go out to perhaps from a first responder point of view and establish a base station, plus a lot of handsets after a disaster, clearly ELTE, the wireless application, will be extremely interesting, of interest to government, military, police. From a power and a smart grid perspective, crews out in the field can take advantage of it. Energy, we can certainly see that ELTE could be of high applicability for oil and gas field exploration if you're out on an oil derrick, and the ability to project wireless coverage out, for example, to the Gulf of Mexico, where a lot of oil companies use it. Transportation, things like Port and City and Port of San Francisco, City and Port of New York, metro railways, aviation, again, typically beyond the wireless DMARC. The ELTE product is a perfect solution to those types of applications. More closer to home, what we're talking about for ELTE and education, and I'll proactively answer one of the questions that's been coming up on the Q&A panel here. But how do I extend that access beyond, if I have wireless access to the campus, but I have a large number of students who don't have access at home and perhaps can't simply go to the local library or the local Starbucks? Yes, absolutely. ELTE can go ahead and extend that footprint to them as well when they're at home or when they're on the move. So again, the 4 major applications of ELTE in education would be the mobile communication. Number 2, extremely useful for video surveillance, and this increasingly raises its head as we've had a number of security issues that have occurred, unfortunately, in campuses over time. This provides a perfect feed of video surveillance that administrators and security personnel can use on campuses in order to monitor ongoing events. Data transmission, clearly, if I've got voice I can transmit, data becomes part of that package. Internet access that allows you to acquire access to all sorts of information. And then finally, broadband trunking for things like dispatching, campus management and maintenance, campus cleanup and those types of things. Those types of support crews at the university can take advantage of the ELTE solution. And so again, at the end of the day, the Huawei ELTE broadband access solution, ELTE, is based on advanced LTE technology to provide internet services from the enterprise to the campus, mobile office, voice over IP, data acquisition, video surveillance, internet surfing, and other broadband services. And so it's an extremely aggressive and far-reaching technology. If you're not familiar with it, I would definitely suggest that you contact your product expert at Huawei or your local reseller to find out more. And then clearly no discussion in education would be complete without a discussion of BYOD solutions. Again, bring your own device. is a phenomenon that is going to occur on your campus if it hasn't already. A lot of campuses are already fully engaged with it, but if yours is not, believe me, the students will drive you to have a BYOD strategy. Huawei offers to support that BYOD architecture a full converged portfolio of networking equipment that allows you to address both the device, the network, and the management pieces of the game. We offer a converged access portfolio with a variety of authentication methods for wired, wireless, branch, and VPN. And it helps users migrate from one access environment to another seamlessly as they roam that campus from the perhaps the dorm room directly into the campus at a different security level, into the R&D lab, and then back out in the general campus. We also support a converged management platform that allows you to have multidimensional management devices, terminals, and users while helping network administrators understand the running status of services, resources, and terminals in a timely manner. And this one-stop management, unlike a lot of our competition, significantly improves perspective and efficiency and cost from a personnel perspective, particularly in this time frame of smaller, not larger IT staffs. Then finally, from a BYOD security protection perspective, we provide sandbox technology that prevents information leaks by isolating personal data from enterprise or proprietary data on mobile terminals, and mobile device management technology manages mobile terminals throughout their life cycle from the time they're brought in on campus to the time that they're upgraded and finally sunset off the campus as perhaps a teacher moves on to a different department, a different state, etc. Students come and go every 2 to 3 years. We need to be able to track those devices, make sure they have the correct security levels, and sunset them on our network, off our network, as appropriate. At the end of the day, no discussion obviously regarding BYOD is complete without secure smart devices. Rest assured we provide those from a complete portfolio point of view. We provide, as I mentioned, comprehensive device control for mobile device management. We provide improved security protection via device system software in our ROMs, in our app signatures, in our certificates and keys. We also provide chip-level physical security, and then finally customizable device software and hardware, including ROM customization, factory pre-installed apps, and the variety of if you would, future-proofing and shock-proofing a lot of our devices so they can stand ruggedized environments. Again, if you haven't had time to investigate our secure smart devices, I would definitely like you to log on to the Huawei website and investigate them to your heart's content, and you contact your local reseller for support on these devices and your questions. Okay, very quickly then, moving on to our case studies for the day. I have 2 scenarios for you today, both of them involving obviously education examples. The first one, the first Huawei implementation, is down in Texas at Crowley Independent School District. So Crowley has about 15,000 students, 1,500 faculty, and 23 campuses. In Texas, like everything else, they build them big. And they have 23 campuses and 4 non-instructional facilities. So a very large, spread out campus. And Crowley came to us a couple of years ago, laying out their growth plans and letting us know that they felt strongly their K-12 education footprint, like a lot of the industry, is undergoing a transformation, and they were no exception. They needed to manage that growth and the number of students coming on their campuses. Texas has seen a huge surge of new companies, therefore new parents and new students coming to the Plano area, the Dallas area, the Austin area, the Fort Worth area, through aggressive Texas state marketing, if you would, that their government has done. And so they've seen a surge in students, and so the need to control and to manage the traffic as it grows. Number 2, they need continuous communications, not just during hours of operation, but 24/7 on the campuses, including the need for security personnel to communicate, and then obviously security of communications overall. So when they went ahead and they asked Huawei for a solution, we went ahead and provided some of those agile products that AJ covered in good detail. Number 1 specifically, our wireless access controllers, our intelligent access points, our S7700 series enterprise switches, as well as our S9700 terabit enterprise core switches. And those ended up forming the heart and soul of the networking solution that could address Crowley's growth and the security needs over time. So again, from a benefit point of view, Crowley now sees increased bandwidth and performance for thousands of students, faculty, and staff, a lower total cost of ownership to help extend those very challenged K-12 budgets, as a lot of us know in our own independent school districts and have seen firsthand, centralized management of all devices to simplify operations, and then also, extremely importantly, with all those access points being put up, automated tools for WLAN planning and administration to accelerate network deployment. And those are tools that Huawei provides free to a customer to have a demo of how we can actually go ahead and intelligently plan that WLAN distribution and those access point locations before installing a single point, just making sure we have the right coverage model, and then we're going to end up with the coverage we want across that campus. My second and last example speaks to the heart of ELTE, and it is Northern Michigan University. And a little bit quickly about the campus itself. They are located in Marquette, Michigan. It's a very dynamic four-year public comprehensive university that's grown its reputation based on award-winning leadership programs, cutting-edge technology initiatives, and nationally recognized academic program. And it has the distinction of being the first U.S. university to own and operate a WiMAX 4G network, which now spans about 40 square miles. Northern's work with WiMAX technology was so innovative, it resulted in President Barack Obama choosing the campus as a site to announce his national wireless initiative in 2011. So lots of great history there. The challenges they obviously had were to provide, because they're in Marquette, which is beyond the SPD market, how do I go ahead and provide coverage from a broadband perspective, connectivity perspective to both my student body as well as my researcher base, my administrators, and quite frankly to some of the folks in the Marquette, Michigan township itself. And it's quite a success story of partnership between those four key stakeholders. So at the end of the day, what Huawei ended up providing was a solution components on the ELTE side. That consisted of our ECNS 600 integrated core network, our DBS 3900 distributed division duplex products, as well as the rest of the ELTE solution portfolio, including our handsets. So at the end of the day, what we were able to provide from a benefit perspective was 24 access to high-speed networking, faster uploads and downloads to help speed networking delivery, improved network reliability over older 3G technologies. As you remember, LTE is a fourth-generation technology. And once again, that very important cost control function, which is, in essence, they were able to share a lot of that cost with surrounding townships in order to defray some of the costs of the installation. So at the end of the day, they're heroes in the township's eyes because they provided connectivity beyond the campus DMARC. Number two, those townships are now willing to separate and participate in some of that cost structure, saving the school money. This Northern Michigan University example has been written up and is available to you online. There are some contact points in the last couple of slides and in our Q&A session that'll talk to you how to go ahead and get those. So at this point, Nick, I believe, as I mentioned, I'm showing some further contact information, and I think there's a brief period of time here where we're available for some Q&A. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Thomas, and thanks, AJ. We do have a number of questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, so we'll get to as many as we can. The first one says, is it possible to integrate Huawei wireless technology or wired switches into my education environment, even if I have other vendor technologies in my campus and core networks currently?
Thanks, Nick. Let me take that actually. So, and Tom, you can follow after that.
Certainly.
So absolutely, the answer is yes, Nick. Huawei's wireless technology as part of the Agile campus and Smart campus that I was talking earlier is based on the open interfaces and the standard protocols. So even if you have a hybrid network or even if you're using the technology from a different vendor, it should work as long as it uses those current protocols. Secondly, I would like to mention here we do have an interoperability lab in China that has tested with, I think if I remember it right, around 20 plus vendors. So if you have any specific vendor in mind, please feel free to reach out to us and get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to provide you with some of those test reports.
Certainly, AJ, those are great points to make. I would also follow up with it is an extreme point of pride for Huawei with our large engineering base that we have many chairmanships and a lot of participation in all the standards committees of the important standards being driven forward. So we're not just participating, but we're helping, as I said, drive the next level of standards. We very much subscribe to the standards perspective. We know we do work on multi-vendor, multi-protocol, multi-country networks, and no customer is served by finger pointing. We like to get to the bottom of issues and problems, and we start out with an extremely robust set of standards and committees that we sit with. So absolutely driving the standards forward.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. The next question is, I want to see live demos of these solutions. How can I arrange that?
So yeah, Nick, I'll take that one. There's a variety of ways that we can help you see those live demos. Number one, we do participate in a variety of trade shows, as you can imagine, throughout the year. The next one, actually, a little bit of an ad here I'll go out on a limb with, is supercomputing, which will be in Austin in a couple of weeks. If you happen to be at the show, please do stop by our booth number 173, and we'll be showing some fantastic HPC high-performance computing demos. We also participate in VMworld Interop and a variety of other trade shows. If you are going to be at one of those trade shows in the near future, again, do let us know and stop by our booth. Number two, if you can't meet us on the road, we do have collateral and other things that do describe the demos that we can provide. We also go ahead and we have a couple of demo centers, one here in Cupertino and one in Plano, Texas, that we can go ahead and set you up with. Or we can always set up a virtual instance of a demo if you'd like to go ahead and do it. And there's a couple of there's an email at the end of this that shows on this current slide. Go ahead and email us, get us those details, and we'll be happy to put you either in contact with one of our sales reps or a reseller that can make that happen.
Excellent, excellent. I think we only have time for one last question just based on the time. And so that last question will be, does Huawei offer technical certification courses for its networking products?
We certainly do, Nick. As a matter of fact, we provide product training, sales training, and partner education. So if you're in the wheelhouse of any of those three, we definitely offer all of those. Our product training, very quickly, we have an extensive catalog of product and technical training that begins with basics and introductions to key concepts. And so again, it can be as good for the initial enthusiast all the way up to the professional. And it covers such topics as installation and configuration, operations and maintenance, architecture, design, troubleshooting, and other advanced topics. When you get certified enough, there are a couple of levels of certification you will achieve if you pass the testing, either a Huawei Certified Network Associate or a Huawei Certified Network Professional. From a sales training perspective, that type of training is designed to equip a VAR account with the Huawei knowledge they need to engage with their customers about our products, services, and solutions. And again, that yields the Huawei Certified Sales Professional, HCSP, and also a little bit more technical, the Huawei Certified Sales Engineer, HCSE. If you'd like more information regarding any of this training, please do ping learning@huawei.com with your question, and those helpful folks will be very happy to get back to you. Again, it's learning@huawei.com, LEARNING.
Excellent. Well, with that, I'm afraid we're out of time. A huge thank you to both Thomas and AJ for all the great information regarding the Huawei products, specifically for the education market. Thanks to everyone for taking time out of their day, and this recorded webinar will be available on Huawei's website shortly, and we hope to see you very soon on another Huawei webinar. Have a great day.